Mike Pachelli here. Thanks for tuning in. I've had a lot of requests to do a lesson on Harold Arlen's Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I actually did one back in 2012 for a now defunct website. And in that solo arrangement, I show how you could inject some blues and make it your own. I've edited out most of the fluff, so if you would, take a trip back in time and watch this. I start with a very common blues intro, and it can also be used as a turnaround. It's known as a 1-6-2-5. I'm doing the arrangement in the key of E, so the intro chords will be E, C sharp, F sharp minor, and B. Now here's the voicings I've chosen. First, a normal first position E. The next chord is a C sharp augmented 9, which is also known as a C sharp raised 9 or sharp 9. The Jimi Hendrix chord, and it looks like this. C sharp augmented 9. And then an F sharp minor 7th, which I like to voice like this. Just basically borrowing on the 2nd fret. F sharp minor 7. You could also think of that like an A triad with an F sharp bass. I think that's a great way to voice that chord. F sharp minor 7. And a B9, which is just on the inside 4 strings. B9. And here's how I play it. If you prefer, you can use a bit of walking bass to lead into some of the intro chords. To do that, you play the note that is a whole step under the target chord you're going to and walk up to it chromatically, like this. So if the first chord is E, and the second chord is C sharp minor, we'll call it, or C sharp raised 9, that's our target chord. So we can play an E, and then walk up. Then maybe the F sharp, and then walk into the B. That. And as you see, it actually works if you go up or down. You could go E, since you're going to the C sharp, you can come down, going D sharp, D, C sharp, like this. Or the other way. Or combination. Cool stuff to spice it up. Simple and very effective. The verse is so iconic that it seems proper to state the melody as succinct as possible. It's an interesting melody with a couple of octave jumps, and that opens up a lot of chordal possibilities. With that said, here's the chords I've chosen. First is E, the same chord as the first chord of the intro, but just played on the bottom 3 strings to enhance the first note of the melody, which is an E. So I'm just going to play either or just the 2 E's for some. Then the second chord is C sharp minor 7th, but a cool voicing like this. So that's a great C sharp minor. Keeps the melody intact then. Okay, then I go to a G sharp minor. Voice just like that F sharp minor I showed you earlier, but a little higher. That's my G sharp minor. Then I'm going to use a G minor 7th augmented 5th, which looks like this. Again, just take that G sharp minor I showed you, bring it down a half step, and add 1 note with your pinky. That's a G minor augmented. And a G13 that looks like this. Again, G13. And here's how I put those first 2 verse bars together. Continuing on with the verse melody requires some additional chords. I've chosen these. First was a 2-note interval of F sharp minor. Since the melody is a low C sharp, I play a C sharp on the 5th string and an A on the 6th string. So it'll be just like this. We need this. And that's actually the 3rd, minor 3rd, and the 5th of F sharp minor. And I'll show you how it works in a minute. To B9 again, that I showed you earlier. And then G sharp minor flat 5, that's a G minor 7 flat 5, we're going to use a G7 flat 5, which looks like this. G7 flat 5. Now I'll demo how the melody works inside these chords. So we've got To continue the melody, I use these chords. F sharp minor for the third time, to A minor, and this is my A minor. Same voicing as I'm using on most of these minors. Here's the A minor. And then I use chords I've already shown you. G sharp minor to C sharp raised 9, to F sharp minor to E, and I get the melody like this. Now here's the entire first verse. Now, at the end of the first verse, you could play the intro, 1-6-2-5, or perhaps add a bit of blues with an improv lick. Let me show you what I mean. Either or with a lick. Just, any lick in E, any E blues lick would work. I like to end it with getting up to these new chords I'll show you in a second. Like, that's it. I begin verse 2 exactly like verse 1, but to make an interesting arrangement, I feel it's necessary to add some harmonic surprise. So again, wanting to keep the iconic nature of the melody intact, I wait until the very last note of the melody to introduce a new chord. Now that new chord is D add 9. Let me show you how I voice it, like this. 4 inside strings, D add 9. Now, and here's where I place it in the melody. So second verse would start. As you heard, the melody note E is the 9th of the D add 9 chord. On the first verse, the melody E was on top of the G13 chord. So now injecting a new bass note, the D of the D add 9 chord, suggests moving the melody along entirely different than the first verse. And note here, there are endless possibilities to this logic, and I encourage you to experiment on your own. But here's the new route I've chosen to continue the second verse. We'll use these chords. First position A, and we all know that chord, from A to an A sharp diminished, also 4 inside strings, and end up on an E. And on that E is another opportunity, if you'd like, to play an ad-lib blues lick to spice up the song and perhaps take a little of the sweetness out of it. So it would sound like this. Now, since the E move was in a higher register, I moved the melody to a higher register also. It requires us learning a few new chords. First one is A major 7th, looks like this. We keep muting that 5th string, but A major 7th. to an F sharp minor 7th flat 5. And you could also think of this chord as calling it a D9, but it looks like this. Inside 4 strings, F sharp minor 7 flat 5 or D9, whatever you want to call that, to an E major 7th, just like this, to a C sharp minor 7th, C sharp minor 7th, and then next I use 2 chords I showed you earlier, a G13 and to a F sharp minor 7th that I showed you, and then one more new chord, or 2 more new chords actually, D sharp minor 7 flat 5, or you could think of this as a B9, which looks like this. There's D sharp minor 7 flat 5, and then to a B13. Just like our G13, but move it up to the 7th fret, B13, and to an E. Now here's that sequence from the A major 7th. So it goes like this. You see, I'm grabbing some melody notes so that I'm just not playing chord to chord to chord. So I play the A major 7th, to the F sharp minor 7 flat 5, to the E major 7th, grab a couple melody notes on the 2nd string 5th fret to the 7th fret, C sharp minor 7, G13, F sharp minor 7, grab a couple melody notes again on the 2nd string 4th to the 5th fret, D sharp minor 7 flat 5, B13 to E. So again. Now I'll play you the entire 2nd verse. At the end of the 2nd verse is a good place to play another ad-lib lick of your choice, just an E blues lick. It can be as long or short as you'd like, keeping in mind that the song is about to go into the bridge. There's not as much room for interpretation during the bridge. The melody is confining and repetitive. It consists of repeating 8th notes, you know. So to add interest, there has to be some counterpoint, like this. Let me do it slow. And then you can perhaps arpeggiate the intro, 1, 6, 2, 5, then play an ad-lib riff over the F sharp minor, and then with that move, A over B to B13 flat 9. Sounds confusing, but let me show you what I mean. Now moving along, the first part of the bridge melody repeats, so to add melodic interest, I've raised it an octave, voiced like this. See that? And here's a few new chords that again take poetic license on the melody, if you will, but add harmonic interest and finish it off. G sharp minor 7th, we'll call this 2 because it's the 2nd time we do a G sharp minor 7th. Slide that form down a half step and put the bass note onto a C sharp, and you get a C sharp 13 with a flat 9. Right. Slide that D form down again a half step. Put the bass on on F sharp, and you get an F sharp minor 7th. All right, you with me? So again. And then the last chord is a B 7th, raised 5, flat 9. It sounds like this from the second part. Once again, here's another opportunity to add your own flavor to this arrangement. I like using a B altered scale or a whole tone scale after the B7 raised 5 flat 9. So something like this. Now let me clarify again, if you don't want to blues up the arrangement, that's fine. Simply play the B7 raised 5 flat 9 and let it sustain until you are ready to begin the last verse, like this. Then you go into the last verse. In order to keep this arrangement not too complicated, hence more fun to play, I only interject one new and simple harmonic possibility in verse 3. Other than that, I'm simply using parts from the previous 2 verses. So I play the beginning of the verse as usual and use what I think is a wonderful substitution for the lyric rainbow that sounds like this. As you heard, melodic interest is created by 2 simple chords. B minor, normal B minor, to that E. Now I suggest playing these chords vibrantly since the B minor takes liberty with the melody, making it a D to an E instead of a D sharp to an E. And that, to my ears, it's a cool thing. So usually the melody is. But now, since I'm using a B minor, the melody is changing to a D, so it's. That's a B minor. And to add a bit more flavor, I've added some new chords over the Bluebirds Fly lyric. First, I start with a A major 7th, I showed you earlier. And then I play an A 6th. Here's an A 6th to a G minor 7th. We'll call this G minor 7 3 because this is the 3rd G minor 7 voicing, which looks like this. G sharp minor 7. So it sounds like this. Now I finish the verse by using the first half of the second verse and the second half of the first verse. It sounds confusing, so I'll just play it for you. So here are my thoughts on the entire 3rd verse. I think arrangements sometimes get too fancy and or difficult towards the end of them, so I purposely kept this ending simple. For me, I don't like to work too hard on the guitar and make it too laborious. It's more fun when things work naturally and organically. With that said, here's my tag. It's very simple and keeps the melody intact. After that, it's totally up to you on how to end the song. You could simply play an E and the song would be finished, like this. Now Or if you'd like, you can insert one of your own signature licks, making it an impressive or show-offy ending. Something like this. FYI, that surprise chord I just played was an E minor major ninth, and it looks like this. You could use any chord you want, you know, any E chord you like. It's totally up to you how you choose to end it. When you play my arrangement of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, feel free to add whatever you like. If it inspires you to be creative, then I've done my job. There really is no actual wrong or right way to play a song. It's all totally subjective. I feel I'm simply providing a bit of a roadmap, and I appreciate you spending your valuable time listening to my point of view. I hope you enjoy playing it, because that's what playing the guitar should be all about. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, found it interesting, and a way to make the arrangement your own. I suggest you download the charts and tabs at MikePachelli.com, learn one section at a time, and turn it into your own thing. And I really appreciate your consideration in supporting my work that way. And if you would, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that moves me up in the YouTube queue. So have fun playing this great song, and until next time, I'm Mike Pachelli. Thanks for hanging out with me.